What's up Saab fans around the world, and welcome back to another video. This is a really exciting one. This is the first episode of a build series. So in this series we're gonna build a hybrid engine for the Saab 9.5. So it's gonna be a T5 T7 hybrid build. So we're gonna have like T7 externals and T5 internals. And in this first episode we're going to completely refurbish a cylinder head, and it's the first time that I'm doing it. So I'm just going to bring you along, and I'm going to take it real slow and try to explain as much as I can. The methods that I'm using might not be the best ones in the world, but it's a way to do it. So if you like to follow them, be my guest, but here we go. So here we have the T7 Biopower cylinder head. It's a 16 valve cylinder head. So the first thing we're gonna do is disassemble the camshafts, because these are going to be replaced. So to remove them, you just gently loosen the outer bolts and work your way in. Don't lose them completely, because they have some tension from the springs from underneath. So if you just lose one end or go from one end to the other, you might be able to break it, and that's no good. So be on the safe side and work your way from the outside and in, or inside out. I don't know what's the best, but just be sure to be gentle and loose them a little bit at a time. So when you have no tension, then you can just do it in whatever order you like. So when that's done, we're going to remove the lifters, and then we're going to remove the valve springs and the valves. So I bought a tool from eBay. This is probably the cheapest one you can find. It's from eBay in UK, and it costs like 20 bucks or something like that shipped. So it's even cheaper than the Biltema tool, and the Biltema tool doesn't work for this one. The Saab head is, the spring sits too low, so you won't be able to use it. And it's the first time I'm doing something like this, so bear with me. And to keep track on everything, all of these parts I will place in this plastic tray, so we have track of them on the position where they should sit. And I have painted a piece of wood just pink, so it's super bright, so we know where to lay down stuff. So I'm gonna paint 4 big rings here, which will symbolize the cylinders, and then I will paint 4 smaller rings inside of that cylinder, which will symbolize the valves. So 4 valves per cylinder. So in that case, then we're gonna name it like the exhaust side and the intake side, so we have track on where everything should go. So it's really important that it gets back in the correct position. So we're gonna grind in the valves so it seals perfectly. And we're gonna open up the exhaust ports and the intake ports a little bit. Nothing too crazy, but just open it up a little bit. And it's usually mostly in the roof area where it should get a little bit better flow. So just remove some dirt and debris that has been over the years. And here we have one broken bolt also. This is a typical example, so we're going to drill that out. It's always a challenge. But we're going to start with removing the camshafts, and then we will work our way down. And when it gets to some important part, I will stop and I will try to explain. So it's easy for beginners, or like me, the first time doing it, so you learn from it. So even if I'm doing it wrong, you will be able to learn from it. now the camshafts are out and all of these parts lined up nicely. So we have the exhaust side and the intake side. So I'm going to mark that up right here. Then we're going to move this because later on we're going to do some grinding and stuff right here. So we want to keep the engine parts really clean, so we keep them away. So now we got access to the valves. So now we're just going to insert the tool in some way and try to compress them and then pick them out. So we're going to prepare this little board that I have right here, so we can stack the valves and everything, the springs right here, so we got track of them as well. So now we're going to start to remove the valves, and first we're going to use this spring compressor tool. So we're just going to simply insert it like this, line the underside up with the valve, and then start to compress the spring. This is definitely not the fastest tool. Usually you have like an arm on the tool, so you can just compress it and decompress it real quick. This is a cheap tool, but as I'm not an engine builder and I'm not doing this all day long, this will work just fine. So it's a little oily down here, but as you might can see, I'm trying to get the lights for you. Down here it's compressed, and down there is a little retainer that stops the spring from falling off. So to remove that retainer, you simply just take like a little screwdriver or something. It's really oily, so you just stick it down and remove it from it. So you can just fish it up. I hope you saw what I was doing. Like so. Don't try to lose them. And then you simply decompress it and remove the spring. And I'm not gonna keep these springs, otherwise I would have the springs lined up together with the valve where it came from. So originally there's a double spring, so one smaller spring and one larger outer one. So we're gonna upgrade these to a harder spring and just a single spring and not the double one. Springs, retainers and the circlips are removed. So here are the valves and the valve seals. So we're gonna change the valve seals as well. So now it's just to poke them down a little bit and take it out. And we will place it at its spot. So now we will have everyone in order. And the T7 valves are 5 millimeters, and this is from the biopower. So they are treated with something special, I don't know what it is, but something to withstand the E85 a little bit better than the usual valves. So we're gonna fix this area right here where it is some porosity and some buildup and some rust. So we're gonna clean this off. We're not gonna like high polish it, but clean it off so it looks fresh. So it will be nice to install them back later on. Now we're gonna start to polish off all the like rust and debris that's on it on the top. We're not gonna do a high polish job, just get rid of the worst. Take a piece of painter's tape to protect the shaft. Then gently put it in the machine. Then you take some WD-40 or some rust solvent. Here I got some 556. Then we just take some abrasive, like 3M, some Scotch-Brite or something like that. All the valves are done. As I said before, it's not like we're going for a high chrome finish, just so they are a little bit fresher, which they are. So this would be delighted to start to grind them in to the seats. And here we have the head itself. So we're gonna freshen up everything, all the machine surfaces. So next up will be a little bit of cleaning. So we got all of this old oil out and we're gonna remove the seals. So this is just to pry out and we will throw them away. The cylinder head is cleaned off as good as it gets. Okay, you could lay down some more hours and remove every little piece that you see, but this will be good enough. It's clean surfaces everywhere, so this will definitely be good enough. So now we're going to start with the porting, and as I said, now this is flipped upside down. So this will actually be the roof of the head, so we're going to remove the most of the material. And this is the intake side. So here it's actually pretty good. The only thing we are going to do right here is this wall. We're going to make it more sharp and more narrow for the airflow. Now it's like rounded, so the air could like bounce against it. We will make it more sharp and remove some of the material, so the wall inside here will be thinner. But we will not be doing as much to the walls around or the roof. Most of the work will be carried out on the exhaust side, where it's a little bit more narrow. So the channel is actually larger for the intake and smaller for the exhaust. We are not going to make them evenly big, but we are going to remove some of the material here before we grind in the valves and make them seal perfectly. So the first thing will be to port up the head to make sure that the flow is optimum, because the more air you could get through the head, the less boost you need to get to the same level of horsepower. So more airflow, less boost, more power. So it's a great way to make more power without losing the stability of the build. So of course you can overdo this if you take away too much material or remove material where it should not go away. Then you will have a less good flow, so you will actually lose power, larger airflow, but it will be a worse flow than you had before. So of course you can make this really bad. So we will do very little, and it's not going to be like flow tested or anything like that. We're gonna go with the feel and make it as good as we can. And the tools I'm using is this tool grinder that is hooked up to the air compressor, which removes material super nice. So the major part of everything will be with this tool. Then I have an electrical grinder with an assortment of different options. So this will be like the fine polishing of everything. But I probably mentioned this before. It should not be like a high chrome finish. Actually, the airflow will be less good if it's super shiny. So the air will probably stick to the surface to some extent, instead of if it's a little bit rough, then the air will just like roll. The best part is to remove some of the really harsh surface that got from the casting and make it a little bit more smooth, but not too smooth. So it's up to you to decide when it's too smooth or too rough. So the exhaust porting is done. Not the biggest of difference, but still it's more open now, more flow. So I think this will be good. You can see there is some material removed. So I have now just blow some air through it so we don't have any residue left. That could cause like an engine failure later on. So now we're gonna flip this and start grinding in the valves. So now it's time to start to grind in the valves. So we have two different types of grinding paste. One that's a little bit harsher and one fine. So usually it should be okay to just use the fine, but my valves are really like corroded or have some porosity around the edge. So I'm going to use the more coarse one first and then the fine. So the valves looks like this. This one is a little bit grinded already, but you can see it should be just something more like this to get a good seal. So what you do is take some of the paste and just dab it around the valve. Then you take your tool, like so. And in between the grinding you need to lift it up a little bit, change place, so you don't rub it in at the same place, so you go around all the time. So it's getting there, but it's not there yet, so we need to continue a little bit more. But I'm just gonna show you what it does to the valve seat. So this is like what it looks like before. And here you get a perfect new sealing surface. So this is really important to do to get a good seal on the valves and to make them fit properly. So now I'm just gonna go over and do each and every one, and it's super important to know which one you used where. So keep track on that. Feels like this project has been going on forever, but at least all the valves are grinded in and have a fresh new surface, so it seals perfect. This surface has been machined, so it's 100% flat and seals perfect to the block. What's left to do now is to fix this intake ports, because if you can see up in the port right here, up in the corner, it's like a little bump, and I don't know where it comes from or why it's there, but it could be to mix around the air and the fuel at a certain way. I haven't got any real good answers to this, so I'm gonna just grind it down a little bit, but I'm gonna keep it somewhat. So I'm gonna do a halfway solution. I'm gonna keep it, but I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller so we have a greater flow. But you should know this, that flow isn't everything. The fuel and the air should mix at the perfect way, so you cannot just open it up as much as possible, then you will have a lousy mixture maybe in the end, because it's designed in this way, so probably it does something. Flip to the exhaust side, which is done ported, but we have this issue right here, so we're gonna drill this out. Then all the other ones are threaded and nice looking, so we're gonna drill this with a really small drill or drill bit. Then there's these kind of tools that spin counterclockwise to pull it out. This works kind of good. This is pretty cheap quality, but I have managed to get some of them out. And most of you have your engines inside of the car, obviously. So this is a tricky one because you can't reach in with tools and stuff like that. So the easiest way to do this is to remove the head, which isn't that big of a process. It takes some time, but it's manageable. And then try to drill it out. So now we have a pretty good and centered hole. It's not all the way through, but it's enough. So we're just gonna take a Torx and just hammer it in a little bit so it sticks, then try to thread it out. So we got it, success, and all the threads are still there. That's amazing. So now we have blown the cylinder head completely clean, so we don't have any of these little metal flakes everywhere that could destroy the whole engine build. So make sure it's really clean. Now it's time to first install the new seals down here, and to do that I'm using a 22mm socket that fits perfect over, so I'm just gonna push it down into place. After all the seals are in place, we're gonna install all the valves together with some new upgraded springs. This is the OEM, which is a double spring. So when it's at full tension, you can get some help from this little spring inside. And when this is compressed to the setting where it sits OEM, this is graded for 23 kilos and this is 31, so it's quite an upgrade. So I think this spring you can bottom out, this spring you cannot. And if you're gonna rev higher than the car is built for, then this is a must, and this will keep the valves sealed at all times. So you will get a much better performance from the cylinder head with these springs. Seals are in place, so now it's time to start to reinstall the valves. And here comes the good part, where we have everything marked up, so we know where it's going back into the right place. So we will start from the left and start installing them one by one. And we're also gonna reuse these washers that fits perfect over the upgraded springs as well. So you compress down the spring until you can see these grooves that these little clips are going into. They are so small, I don't want to drop this right now. And they don't like clip in. You can see that they are shaped like a cone. So you just put it in place and then release the tension carefully, and they will hold it in place. So I'm not going to show every spring because this is going to take some time. So you're just going to be careful and put it in, then release it very safe and slowly, so you see that it really sits, and hold down the spring before you just let it go. It's super hard to see, but now you can see that I have got the clips on. They are 2 pieces. So now it's just to release it very carefully and see if it holds on. So the first one is in, and when you release it, it locks into place. Sits perfect. So now it's just to do the same to the rest 15 of these. So I'm not gonna bore you with this, but I'm gonna show you when it's done. All valves back in place. Went pretty smooth once I got the technique in. So a little tip is to compress it enough so you get the little locking clip on easily. Sometimes I didn't compress enough and then I struggle a lot to get it on. Be a little more generous when you compress it, so compress it enough, then it's real easy to put it in place, and then just decompress it. So now we're just gonna put in the lifters and then install the new cams. So I ran into one little small issue when dropping in the lifters again, because this is hydraulic lifters. As you can see, it's a little hole for the oil to come in here, and then it should fill this little tab right down here. So when it's filled with oil, it should like take up some of the hits from the valves, so this should flex, and mine was completely numb when I put them in. So the mistake that I did, I pulled them out and then I placed them like this for like 3 weeks. So the oil has gone out and this has pushed out fully, so it's stuck. So what I should have done was to place them upside down in a bath of oil, so they keep lubricated from the moment when you take them out of the cylinder head until you put them back in again. They should stay lubricated in oil and be upside down, so you don't have them air filled or they decompress fully. So what was left to do was to put in the cams and torque them down. And what is really crucial is that you torque it down in the right pattern. So you start like from the middle and go to the outside and the other side, and then you move along like this. You can Google it and you will see how the pattern is, how it should be tightened. So I'm gonna leave it like it is for now. And the cams that we will be running is these. This is Saab's OEM B202 cams. It's the cams that are closest to tuning cams, but they are stock Saab cams. So these are from cars that are produced from, I think, 86 to 93. So it's Saab 900 cams. And these cams has the longest duration out of any cams that Saab has ever done. So these are from a naturally aspirated engine. So they had the intake cam has a duration of 252 degrees, and the exhaust cam has 254, and I think the OEM in the B235R is 231 degrees. So it's quite an upgrade, and the lift is a little bit higher in these cams. I think these are 8.65 millimeters, and the standard in the 95 Aero is 8.3 or something like that. It's really close at least, but these are the best ones that you can get. And what this will do, they will move the torque span a little bit, so you won't have as much low end torque as you will with the original cams, but as a benefit you will have a lot more air going through the whole register, all the way up to the RPM stop. So this will get you more power, and you will have like a wider range of the torque curve or the power band. So I have ran this in a 2-liter turbo engine before, which I did a T5 T7 build also. So this will go in a 2.3 liter, and I'm really excited what these are going to do. So basically what I'm going to do with the lifters and everything, I'm going to leave it like it is, and when I start the engine build and lift off the cylinder head in the car that's running right now, I'm just going to transfer the lifters, and out of 16, 10 are completely numb, and I managed to save 6 of them. So I might reuse them if I find anyone that's bad, but as I said, when you have installed them, they should flex a little bit so they won't knock when the engine is running. This would have like bent the valves if I would have used them like this. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know how it came out, because I have been filming short clips like for days or weeks since I have been waiting for parts in between, but at least now we're done. Just going to install the cams. As I said, when we're installing it in the car, it doesn't take that long time. So if you have any questions, please comment down below, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future uploads, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!